Of Tuesday, August 16th to order. And first item on the agenda is the new high school update, and I assume that is Dr. Pace or Mr. Clinch are leading that.
Mr. Clinch and the team. Do we need another chair?
Dr. Akes, can I bother you to go get Mr. Soto from the hall, please?
Hi, how are you?
I think he's right back here, Dr. Akes.
Oh, he's back somewhere. He's not here. I don't know. I know he's in the building.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you. This is the board workshop. We have two projects that we're going to update you on this evening. First, the new high school, the Boggy Creek Road Area High School project. We have a presentation teed up where our design professional, Schenkel Schultz Architects, and Gil Bain Construction, our construction manager, will provide the design and construction update. So we'll start first with the design update. I'll turn it over to Mr. David Torbert to run through that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. We've got a lot of slides here to go through, but we're going to try and be brief and succinct and to the point. A lot of this information you all have seen previously, so we're not going to belabor it. Certainly,
Do you have the presentation that we can?
We do. We have copies that we will pass around, hard copies. Certainly, if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask us. Real quickly, we have 6 items that we plan on covering. Essentially, sort of going over the schedule, the 3 major elements, if you will, of the project, and then last but certainly not least, Gilbane's going to update us on where we're at with respect to the money. As we always have, we start with the goals that you all laid out for us at the beginning, and I'm not going to go over each and every one of these. You all are familiar with them, but we do constantly do this just to make sure that we remind ourselves of what we started with to try and achieve.
So what we basically want to tell you today as far as the message for our presentation is where we are schedule-wise and where we are budget-wise is we're on schedule, we're on budget. We'll show you that. We'll show you how we're achieving both of those things. But more importantly, everything that you've asked for in terms of those goals are in the project and they're in the budget. So we want to kind of go first with where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. This is the schedule. The goal of this schedule is making sure that the construction of the facility is ready for students in July of 2018. You basically see 3 schedules here that are all working together concurrently to make that happen. The early site package, which came to you as a GMP from Gilbane, I want to say the last board meeting. We also have the building shell package. That's all the exterior of the buildings, the tilt wall, the roof, the slabs. We completed that on July 29th. Gilbane currently is putting that out to bid, to take bids September 8th, I believe. And then the last piece is the interior fit-out package, which is what Schenkel Schultz is working on in design. All 3 of those things are working concurrently, and construction will start roughly 1st of September, and the building will be complete in July of 2018, as you expect.
The July of 2018, is that July 31st?
No, I believe it's the 18th.
Yeah, it is. It's like the middle.
You know, this hasn't come up before. I guess I'll direct it to Dr. Pace. We've got a construction pipeline program for students. Yes. Are we at all, engaging those students in this as, as not observers, or I realize you're not going to do any work, but just here's a real live project right here, and is it like I'm a straight man for you?
Yeah, it just so happens that we have been formulating a plan, and what we intend to do is a construction pre-apprenticeship training program. In fact, I was at ABC Associated Building Contractors last night presenting that program, looking for them to help us with funding. They have construction grants and career source that might be an option, and have already discussed this with Gilbane to do this in conjunction with our new high school project, where we would bring on 25 students and we would run them through 9 modules, including basic safety, construction plans reading, hand tools, power tools, basic communication skills, basic employability skills, the skills to prepare those students to arrive at a construction site ready to work. They would not be seasoned apprentices, of course, but to be prepared to show up and to couple those students with subcontractors. They would be picked up as employees, and the hope would be that they would then be picked up into an apprenticeship training program so that they could, get into the electrical trade, concrete trade, mechanical trade, etc. But we are looking at such a program. We're hoping to tee that off the first of the year, and it would run about 2.5 months to run through all 9 modules, a total of 82.5 hours. So the next step is I'll be meeting with TICO next week to get their costs for instruction, textbooks, to support the NCCR curriculum, etc.
So these students would get high school credit for it also?
This would be primarily addressed to our adult ed students at TICO, although
Okay.
there may be some opportunities for some of our high school students to be a part of that. Some of our high school students have been a part of some programs this summer. You get into some age requirements.
I understand. No, I realize that there's the, not
You
every-
think your subs are all in on this, or will be?
I think they will be. Yeah, we do something
They wanna be
similar
subs,
in
they-
Orange County. And I'm sure they'll be
Okay.
more than willing to participate.
Through the construction pipeline, we've already been working on getting those students, if not involved in, like the NCCR, just to go out there and see the process and learn the process. But through field trips, we've already been working with them to set up field trips for this project and another project out in Poinciana.
So I guess that, and this is very encouraging, and not to belabor it, but I guess come, January, February, March, whenever it makes sense, just give us an update, how many students and what, what they're doing, et cetera, that'd be great.
We're
Thank
also
you.
bringing in the ACE mentoring program to our county, which is going to involve that as well.
Thank you.
And I'm involved in that as well, as is Eric. I serve on the board with the ACE Mentor program. So we're looking at standing up 2 locations, one out at Poinciana and the other one in St. Cloud.
And I realize this wasn't part of the presentation, but thank you for the indulgence.
No, but actually, Mark
That's why we're
had
here.
approached us about this real early on, as soon as Mark came on board and saw that opportunity with Triple F.
That's great. That's very encouraging, thank you.
So with respect to the schedules, Joe outlined essentially the takeaway we hope you take away from this is we're on schedule. School will be open when it's intended to be open, and right now, currently, we don't foresee anything preventing us from being able to accomplish that. So the rest of our presentation is kind of organized around these 3 packages, if you will. We're going to look at the site, we're going to look at the exterior envelope, and then look at the interior lab. So with respect to the site package, you've got in the handouts, and you can see on the screen is the site plan. Really nothing really new here to share with you. You can see, although it's a little distorted on this screen, the main high school campus is located right here in the center site facing Boggy Creek Road, as it always has. The main entrance right here off of Nellie Road, where the traffic light will be. To this quadrant of the site is where all the athletic components, athletic fields, football stadium are located. You've got some large retention areas that kind of wrap the perimeter of the site and also act as a buffer between the neighbors and the high school. And then you've got the area here that's shown on the site plan as future middle school. It's drawn like there's a building there, but actually on opening day of the high school will actually be a grassed field, so that will be where a future middle school can be built. So,
I got a couple of questions.
okay.
Number one, is that enough space for portables?
Yeah,
Yes, those are drawn to scale, yes.
Oh, okay, so is that, so
and the number that's been requested. I
2?
believe it's
Okay,
12.
okay. And what about portables for the middle school? I mean,
Well, there's more than enough
Yeah.
room. There's a blank spot right there
north of those.
There's-
by the soccer field.
Okay. That's
There's
what I-
areas here,
Okay,
area
okay.
there that you could fit,
Okay,
easily fit another
Thank
dozen
you.
in for that.
thank you.
Quick question on the future middle school site, those fields that are there, those would also be future, or those being built?
Those are
straight
future.
away?
However, somebody help me out, my name is John. I believe we're building an extra field to be used for the high school
As a practice.
as a practice field while or before the middle school comes online 10 years down the road.
Yeah, where the middle school sets, there's actually practice fields. It wouldn't be real elaborate what Joe's drawn in there, Patrick, so until it comes out of the ground to fruition, there would be something we could practice band on, so just, soccer.
Just an open grass field. So,
I mean, it'll,
Yeah, I mean, if it's just
it'll be
open
utilized for the
grass,
high
that's
school
one
as
thing.
long as the middle school doesn't get built. Once the middle school gets built, those fields will kind of more or less go away for that building footprint. So they're practice areas.
And the loop for stacking, that's all going in now though, right?
No,
Wait,
it's
can you
not.
tell me where the stacking is taking place, because I'm confused.
The stacking for the parents that
Yes.
enter here.
They will pick up middle school there when it's built also?
No, middle school will have it.
The middle school pickup will happen over in this area along this loop right here.
So they're
But
gonna,
then you've got a shared bus drop
right, so
off.
they're gonna have to go by the bus loop to get to that?
Yes.
Yes, they will.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
We only have a limited number of access points on Boggy Creek Road. And that has all been taken to the county, and they've reviewed all of that.
And y'all think that'll work?
Yeah, I think that'll work fine.
Could we get
Because the
another
buses
access point?
the buses basically get out of the way pretty quickly.
Could
I'm
we
sorry?
get another access point for the future middle school site?
I think we
Further
looked
to
at,
the
where's
east?
John?
John, I
We
mean,
looked at that with them, and
John's back there shaking
this
his head.
John.
I mean, that John's back
Oh,
there.
John.
Okay, that John says
Sorry.
no.
And John, is that no because of the county or no because of planning?
No, because of the county.
I mean, it's one of those things you can go and ask, but I think what John's saying is the answer you're more likely gonna get is no.
We even looked at, I can't think of, what's the name of the road on the side there, Dave? Can't think of it right now. Spring Lake.
Yeah.
We looked at coming in off
When
of
the middle
Spring
school
Lake, but
comes
the
on,
problem
that
is
will
it's
be a
more or less a
challenge.
private drive with a
Absolutely.
secure
Yeah.
gate, and that
Appreciate
creates all
that
kinds of
separate.
other issues.
Where's
There's
the
not really
separate
enough
mistake?
depth there to get them off of Boggy Creek. We looked at a number of different options for that. And all of that can be readdressed again, 10 years down the road when you're ready.
Okay, and if I'm looking at this correctly, then where
That's
the
what I'm hearing. I mean, you guys know better than me, but I'm sorry, sir.
You're okay. Where the cafeteria is and that last remaining orange building just north of it there, that's the end of what will be built going east, with the exception of a practice field, which will really just be an open grass area.
Correct.
We're not really spending any money on the
And-
practice field per
and
se.
the bus loop.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, north of the bus loop and east of the
Yeah, right.
cafeteria.
That'll all be practice area,
Open grass.
if you will.
Okay.
Grassed.
And then John, as far as the practice field is concerned, it's just Bahia sod thrown in the middle of the field, right?
Correct.
Nothing
But
fancy.
when the middle school does get built, they do have a field over that's associated with the middle school.
Right.
It could be used in the evening and afternoon for the high school for practice fields.
Right. Okay.
May I ask a question? Sure. So David, getting back to the bus loop, would it be possible to eliminate or reduce the size of the retention pond that fronts Boggy Creek Road, right there, and create a slip road along the bus loop, so that if we're limited to the two curb cuts, that we could at least separate car and bus traffic
Right there.
immediately upon the vehicles entering our site?
I mean,
You can't eliminate the pond.
we can't,
Yeah, I understand that.
We'd have to, whatever we reduce, we'd have to put back somewhere else. That's certainly not something I don't think I would stand here and say is impossible. I mean, that's something we could take a
They,
look
what are
at.
the little things between the two ponds? Right, right,
There?
yeah, can it go
That's a
that way or
wetland
not?
area.
That's a well, and we'd have to
Okay,
mitigate the impacted, and that's all part of the scheme of how we're getting under construction in August,
Yeah.
why we didn't impact that.
okay.
So it's, Mark, to answer you, it's something we could take a look at. I mean, I think I understand, you're saying separate the cars and the buses closer to this point.
Correct.
Get the cars going off and the buses going their own
If
way.
we can't get a third curb cut.
I think that's something we can take a
This
look at
bus loop is here.
and evaluate.
Okay, so to go back then to the stacking question that Mr. Thacker asked, the parking immediately in front of the auditorium, that's staff parking, so we don't really have an issue there. All the student parking's on the west side.
Yep.
And then the only stacking that we really, I guess bus traffic, that loop's big enough to accommodate the bus traffic we're anticipating. So we're not gonna have buses backed out onto Boggy Creek.
It shouldn't be. I mean, we planned for the number that has been planned for now. If that changes,
Right.
but no, it should accommodate the number of buses that we're planning for.
Okay, and then I think just last question, we think about the high demand times, morning and afternoon student arrival. What is the thought or plan as far as how much traffic would be backing up from students arriving, getting into that ingress, egress in front of the admin building?
Boggy Creek has a today.
You talking about in front of here?
Yeah.
Well, part of the strategy behind the parking lot design is that as they come in, parent drop off, is going to peel that way and stack, and then come back around. Students can peel off to the left and come in and park, so it helps to try and separate that traffic, so it helps to minimize that bottleneck of everybody trying to be at that same point at the same time. So we're trying to break the students off as early as we can, get them over in their part of the parking lot.
So we also have a pretty long decel lane on Boggy Creek Road that gets them off of Boggy Creek Road and onto the decel lane. I forget how many hundred feet it is.
You know how many feet? You recall how many feet?
320.
Yeah, I was going to say about 300 feet.
Okay. So think about, for my benefit, Liberty High School. I mean, obviously not much different from most of our other schools when we think about the number of students coming in, the fact that the student parking and the staff parking are separated. That driveway in front of the admin building in between staff and student parking, is that about the same as what our ingress is at Liberty?
I would say this is longer.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
We provided the longest turn lanes that we could and not obstruct traffic entering the roadway from the southern road.
Sure, and understand, I know you guys have done everything you can. I just want to understand what you've done, so I understand what it is.
We mitigated that circumstance, because that's a cluster over there.
Right turn right.
So they'll come in here and turn right, they'll come in here and drop off, they'll come back around. The parents can either turn right or come back over here and catch the light. So this should work really smooth in the mornings, especially for a right turn, or this light right here is where they'll be able to come in and out. So the only ones at this light would be the ones who have to turn left.
Left-hand turn.
So we've completely taken that into account. That is a lot of pavement there for dropping off and circling, but the students would turn right in there, so really the parents and the students, after they come in, would be separated.
I think the high school one doesn't worry me, and maybe I'm confused on how this will work when there's a middle school built there. That middle school looks extremely tight to me. John, you go by Neptune every day. How long is that ingress there, right? Compared to that? Do you have any idea? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
It's fairly close to the same. I
When the
know
middle
we
school-
have problems at Neptune, but I think that's more so attributed to the length of the on-site stacking.
Neptune is really short compared to
Yeah,
this.
I know.
This
I
is
just-
more like Narcoossee. Right?
Okay.
You come in here.
It's hard to visualize though.
I did it again, Dave. You can come all the way up, around, all the way back down and drop off before you come back out.
Okay.
That's kind of how Narcoossee works. It goes all the way back from Narcoossee Road, all the way back to the lake and then back around. This is the same way.
Okay.
I think one last question. The county commission, when this first was brought up before we got any designs or anything, the one thing I remember Commissioner Arrington mentioning was traffic concerns on Boggy Creek. As it stands now, we feel like we've addressed the commission's concerns, aside from staff's concerns, but the commission itself. Have they seen and understand kind of what we're doing, and you think this will take care of that?
Yeah, in the compliance plan process, they reviewed all that. And one thing I wanted to point out, our most western access point from the student parking lot, they tried to eliminate that. We had to fight to keep that.
Okay.
Is that a ride out only, or can they go left or right?
It'll be sweet.
It's a right-in also, right, John?
No, right out only.
Okay, it was a
That was
right-in.
the concession to keep that
To keep
connection.
it.
Gotcha.
Right
It was a
out.
right-in, right-out, and they made us make it a right-out only. Okay.
That'll take some educating.
Thank you, guys.
There'll only be one lane.
Any other questions about the site plan before we move on to the next? Okay. Now we're going to move on and talk about the shell package that is the second piece that Gilbane is bidding right now.
So with the shell package, it included obviously all of the concrete and structure, which goes along with exterior elevations, fenestrations, windows, glazing. So what we want to do is kind of give an overview take a step back and look at kind of where we got where we were from the exterior elevations from a design standpoint. What you see in the slide here, this is actually Valencia College of Lake Nona, which the style of architecture is a Pacific Northwest vernacular style of architecture. We talked about this previously. This was kind of what we started with from a design standpoint. Let's take a look at. Next slide. We knew that we didn't really have it wasn't the same budget or type of project, but what we tried to do is take a look at, what are the three things three concepts behind what that building's about and what that style of architecture is about. And we really focus on those three things and incorporated onto this Bard Creek High School project. So we want to make sure also that this high school kind of matched this sort of style, but also had its own character to it as well. So what I want to do is show kind of an overall campus plan. You can see, we talked about this a lot in site plan already, but we have what we call our core buildings along the front here: gymnasium, admin, media, and music auditorium. We have the three-story classroom buildings along the back. We have a landscape courtyard in the middle. And again, we have all the athletics, stadium, baseball, softball, all those grouped off the locker room areas on the west side of the site. From an exterior elevation standpoint.
I got a question.
Sure.
It's really for Dr. Pace, because you were at Harmony High School. And at Harmony, you had, like Celebration, you got the courtyard, but it was paved, it was concrete, correct? Or was it grass in the middle?
Concrete.
Okay, concrete. So the question I've got for you is from a supervisory perspective, for a principal. Does it make a difference if you got grass or, okay, that's what I didn't know.
No, I really like the look of this.
It looks great too. I was just wondering from a principal's perspective though, if it made a difference.
This is closer to the Osceola rebuild.
I really like this too, just a question in line with Jay's. I know when we were doing some of this, I went with Dr. Eggs to a couple of other schools, there was the big questions of, where an administrator can stand and see.
Mm-hmm.
Are all these trees going to block all that?
No, they don't grow that tall. They just don't grow that tall or wide. They're designed to be, so you can see.
Okay.
Okay. Go on, sir. Ricky.
Yeah, I got a question.
Sure.
Access to the baseball field. Is it?
I was just looking.
That's a tram.
Well, yeah,
It goes underneath the football field.
I mean, obviously, I know there'll be maintenance vehicle access, and you'll have to haul, be able to haul in clay and all that kind of stuff, and in and out. But is the closest parking then would be the student parking lot to the baseball stadium?
Correct.
Yes.
And the way it's been designed is the entire athletic fields has been set up as an athletic complex. With one entrance, ticket booth, whatever you want to call it, right there to the south of the football stadium. So everything is pretty much fenced, controlled, paid for, however you want to put it, tickets, etc. And that was worked out with the district and with
Yeah, no, I like that.
with Ryan.
I guess to Ricky, to your point, and Joe, to what you were saying, looking at that configuration, so why wouldn't we want to put the practice fields where the baseball field is and the baseball field where the practice fields are, so that way when people come to an event, they're closer to the parking lot and the practice field's moved? I don't know what the answer to that, but I'm just thinking, based on what you just told me, if people are going to come to watch a ball game, their kids play, an opposing team play, football or baseball, why not have both of them right next to the parking lot?
I think one of the biggest reasons from a site constraint standpoint is we do have an existing wetlands on this corner of the site right here, and we did look at one point having this down here, but there's just not room for it unless we really
Okay,
mitigate the
okay.
wetlands, which again is a whole different.
Because looking at the way it's configured on that, you can't tell.
Yeah, it's misleading, but there is a boundary that we're required to keep an
Okay.
offset from that we can't really
Got it.
squeeze it in there.
And from an instructional standpoint, I don't know, I wasn't involved in the discussions, Dr. Eggs, but I'm assuming that our PE classes would use practice
The
field.
practice field.
Yes, ma'am.
They won't be
Okay.
using the
More
stadium
accessible
fields.
to the building there, and Mr. Wheeler, the other thing that kind of thinking on this was that those practice fields could be for parking during those really big football games.
Okay.
All right.
Makes sense?
Overflow.
That makes sense.
So we kind of were thinking along those lines that if you had to have more parking, that would be, trust me, we put that
No,
where we could.
So
That makes a lot more
I
sense.
hope that's a problem.
Those are the games when
Yeah, I hope it's
Gilbane and Schenkel Schultz bring all the people out to the games.
Two quick questions regarding practice fields. Osceola High School has, a number of schools do, have real challenges with lighting practice fields as it gets darker earlier, being able to do soccer practice, football practice, everything else that's going on. Have we accommodated for that in any way?
Yeah,
Sorry.
everything on that site plan is being lit.
Okay.
Practice fields are being lit, the baseball, the softball, the football, tennis courts, the basketball courts, it's all being lit.
And does this plan here leave us more green space for practice than is existing at OHS or any of the other schools?
Yes, sir, we maximize every piece of space on there. The water that you see up there is required to mitigate all of the wetlands on there. And the way that Patrick and them put the baseball, softball, if you'll look at that up there, those lights shine back toward the actual,
I noticed, yeah.
you see that? So
Yeah.
we're trying to be very, good neighbors there as we look at it. But Joe and them worked hard to try to maximize. That's why when that middle school's not there, that'll be more of a practice field section there. That'll be close, but when you're looking at that gym and you're flowing out of it to go to PE, everything is as close for instruction during the day as possible and also accessible during the afternoon.
And just for clarity, all of the athletic facilities for the high school are being lit. That grassed area where the middle school will go, that is not being lit.
Right.
So it'll just be an open.
I figured.
Is everybody comfortable with the size of this whole site with when that middle school is built?
I would like that all for high school.
Or are we putting too much? Are we putting too much into? And I guess where I'm ultimately going is, should we be looking, if it is indeed too small, and I don't know what's there to the left or to the right, but should we be starting to think now, 4 or 5 years before we build that middle school, about if there's a chance of picking up any of that other property? I'm just throwing it out.
Keep in mind that we do have the Harmony Middle School and on the 5-year plan that would be ahead of this, so that would be some additional seats on that east side for middle school along with the Marcusi Middle.
And I know the concern on the parking for the middle or the parent drop-off, but if you give us a little time to work on it, we could kind of work that little piece out, give the guys just a little bit on that. But it'll work for middle school and high school and share, if we needed to. It depends on how fast that high school area grows and what the reality become of those portables. So.
Well, they'll grow pretty quick once they see this coming. Once
And then
kids
each
start
piece
going
will
there.
be staggered start and end times.
How far?
I think it just, I don't know why that middle school looks jammed in.
How much further north is it to the Orange County line?
A couple hundred yards.
Not very far.
Probably
It's
about
right there.
that site
Depth
distance.
It's not the green space.
It's like literally right around the corner.
Quarter mile.
Yeah, very
That's
close.
what I see as this looks compared to.
I think it's.
All right, so again, just to kind of reiterate where we are as far as the overall campus plan, I think we kind of talked about the situation in athletics, the educational spaces. Go to the next slide. So again, this is looking at the front elevation along Boggs Creek Road, and this is very consistent with what we had shown previously. This is kind of just a recap of where we are. One thing I do want to point out, and we had gone through this kind of extensive BE and refinements with Gil Bain and making sure we're on budget. Some of the things we did was to make sure we're very selective where we used full brick on the building. And essentially what we did was, let's make sure that on Boggs Creek Road, right along the front door, that's really focused. The taller glazing, the metal roof, sunshades, the brick, that's all along Boggs Creek Road. And that's kind of what we're trying to show here is, as you drive up and you see the front part of the school, that's where we have that kind of vernacular and more of the extensive fenestrations on the building. This image shows the front door of the admin area. Again, we're trying to pick up some of the style of architecture that we talked about before with the glazing, the roof overhangs, aluminum sunshades. And this is a good example of where you can see when you walk up to the school, right in the front door, you are going to see that kind of full brick and those more expensive building materials. And we're saving the back part for more economical design. This is an image showing the front door, the public access for the auditorium and performing arts building. Again, utilizing brick, sunshades, very selectively where we can to make sure we're kind of giving the best front door image that we can for the public access along with Boggs Creek Road. And this is the public access to the gymnasium. We worked, extensively with Dr. Akes and Ryan and the whole group on making sure we have the right kind of gym. And this was the lobby space as you drive up along the parking lot there. This is what you walk into that building. This next image is an overall for the courtyard. So you can see now we're looking at the back side of the site, the north side of the site, which has three-story classroom buildings. Again, we're still using tilt wall construction, and all of the red brick that you see here actually isn't going to be brick. It's actually a form liner pattern in the concrete that's going to be painted red. So it's a little misleading, but what we tried to do is say, again, on Boggy Creek Road, let's use the more expensive brick materials. Along the classroom building, let's take it back and just use some form liner. It's much more affordable that way. And honestly, it's a lot taller here, so it's less noticeable when you're walking up to it. We do have some brick along the columns here for the stairways, but we've drastically reduced the amount of brick that we have on the project as well. And this next image shows looking from the courtyard at the classroom buildings, again, trying to create as much of a learning opportunity as we can in the courtyard. So we're looking at providing photovoltaic alternative energy panels in that courtyard space to make it really an active learning area. And again, you can see some of the storefront that we have. This is just painted concrete tilt wall. And we have some, again, brick form liner pattern in the concrete, but not actually brick on the classroom building. And you can also see, it's kind of hard to see, but we do have the roof terraces overlooking this courtyard as well. So part of this is going back and seeing how we can maximize every inch of the site and the space and the courtyard for educational opportunities. That's what we're looking for.
So now let's talk a little bit about the next phase, which is the interior fit-out package. These are the core buildings. The big thing about the core buildings was make them bigger. We need them bigger. So to that point, if you could bring up the slide, the gymnasium is bigger than Liberty. Liberty had 1,300 seats. The high school of Boggy Creek will have 1,526 seats. The basketball courts are all the same size. You have 94-foot basketball courts, at least in most of your newer prototypes. We kept that. We worked with Ryan on that. Testing was huge. We built testing into the media testing, I'll call them labs. Also adjacent to the auditorium, and we're also using the auditorium lobby, which is a space that really isn't utilized during the day, as testing labs. Those are all solely dedicated to nothing but testing. They're not a classroom that we're converting. Those are testing only. You can do that 24/7. In addition to that, we have the 6 flex spaces that are in the classroom buildings. That gives you roughly, I'm going to round that off to 800 testing seats in the facility. The auditorium is bigger than Liberty by about 125 seats. The cafeteria is bigger than Liberty by about 110 seats. We also have a plan that you could actually expand the dining room later on down the road by just popping out some tilt wall panels if that was actually needed. We also have an outdoor dining area that has 300 seats. I know Liberty has one. I just couldn't find anything that told me how many seats they had out there. So everything's bigger. In addition to that, culinary arts is here. It's always been here. It's attached to the cafeteria, and you can see that. And we're going to talk to you about Medical City, all the programs that have now been defined that correlate to Medical City. And Patrick's going to go through that on the second and third floor plan.
I got a question before we get off this slide. Dr. Pace, for testing, you got 794 testing seats. Does that include the flex space, or is that all? Or is that just the testing sites and
that includes everything. So I have a breakdown. I want to say, let me make sure I'm right. I want to say you have 500 dedicated testing spaces.
Okay.
It might be 600.
So the question I've got is, FSA, or whatever test we are told we've got to administer to students, for Algebra 1, for geometry, for reading, etc., we'll have the space to accommodate that at the school the way it is right now.
As best we can, yes.
Okay, next question. Cafeteria. We're building a 3,000 student station school, correct? So we could, if it's not raining, accommodate 960 students at lunch. We're going to have to run 3 lunches?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick, you go back one slide, just a clarification, because I was thinking that the building to the north of the cafeteria and the culinary arts was culinary arts. What is that extra building up on the top right?
That's your central energy plant.
Okay, I saw it on here, but I couldn't. Okay, thank you.
And will that be for both facilities if we ever build
Yes.
it?
Yes. What is there?
So the next image shows, we're talking about the interior fit out as we move forward with the interior design. This is just showing we still want to we still have the same design for the media center, and we presented this a while back. We're looking at how media centers have evolved, and they could be becoming more of a 21st century library ecosystem. So we just want to say we're still incorporating focused, collaborative, social spaces into the design, and this is still kind of tracking moving forward for the interior package.
In addition, when we were here last time, we talked about the gymnasium, and we looked at value engineering, and in order to get on budget, we basically said what we were going to do was build the gymnasium from Liberty High School, if you will remember. We didn't exactly do that. We met with Ryan, we worked with Gilbane, and what we were basically able to do is save the larger gymnasium proper and take the locker facility from Liberty and attach it to that. So this is actually a little bit bigger than Liberty, and it does a lot of different things. First of all, we've got 94-foot main court. We have two 94-foot cross courts, so they're all full-size courts. We off-centered the basketball court in order to put in the additional bleacher seats, but more importantly, what we wanted to do is break it out so that you could open one side only and have wrestling tournaments, and we worked that with Ryan, so we did that. Also, we still have the full-size wrestling room that allows you to lay down your mat. We've kept that. And if you can see, it didn't take that much additional square footage in order to achieve those items.
Joe, help me refresh my memory. Is Liberty the biggest gym we have?
No.
No.
Because we went back and forth comparing this to other gyms, and who's got the big one?
OHS and
OHS.
OHS with the redesign.
And you started out here with the OHS size, right? And cut it back.
No, we did not. We basically designed a gymnasium with Dr. Akes and with Ryan that would be a new gymnasium design.
So we ended up getting the bigger gymnasium than we thought we were going to get.
Correct.
Okay, that's where
That's correct.
That was
Correct.
my question. Okay, good.
And the other thing that Joe worked out was, and Ryan, they worked out some functionality issues from the Liberty, and they've met the best we can afford. They've met all of the requests. The lobby on the gym is going to be really functional the way they laid it in there. We did get a full-size wrestling. For what we can afford to do, it really met, the best we could do it, and, we're back and forth, but it'll be well for basketball, and it'll be a great wrestling environment. So we kind of tried to meet in the middle on some of these issues.
Yeah, I mean.
Did we give up anything big?
No, actually, I think
It didn't sound like it.
from when we were here previously talking about the value engineering, at that point, the thought process was we were going to have to go all the way back to the Liberty Gym. And what the team has been able to do since that time is work out, if you will, a compromise that's somewhere in between. It's a bigger gym. It gets you more things than what you would have if you had just the prototypical Liberty Gym. So it's actually, you didn't give up anything. You actually gained some things.
Just out of curiosity, if Point Siena and OHS are the two largest gyms, what's the comparison to this new one, roughly? I mean,
I'd have to do that, but we're not as big as those.
OHS is.
It's the seating capacity, I think, isn't it, Joe? I mean, that's where we started it, but I do believe the seating capacity is one of the things. This one has a pretty good sized weight room in it. We felt was more than adequate once we worked with it. And maybe a little bit has changed with the locker rooms, but it really goes back to trying to stay within budget and what you can afford to do.
sure.
And that's good. I guess the only question I've got is looking at it from a PE perspective. We've got a school with building it for 3,000 student stations, and let's go under the assumption that this comes out of the ground, and all of a sudden we are at capacity, if not above capacity, by 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We got space for portables, and we're at 3,400 students. Is this gym big enough to accommodate that student population for not extracurricular, for PE?
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Particularly with the outdoor spaces that you have.
Well, we do get rain.
If we were going to cover the outdoor basketball gym courts out there, even at 3,000, we would be rock and roll, and it would be more than that.
You're not going to have half your school at PE at one time.
No, I understand that, but just when you've got that many students, okay. If you say we're okay, we're okay.
So in looking forward at the interior fit out, we also want to give an update on the academic programs that we have in the building. I think last time we hadn't really known exactly which programs are going to be in the school. We do know that, like Dave talked about early on, when talking about the project goals and objectives, one of the things we wanted to do was make sure some of the programs we put in the school had a had a component with Medical City and health components. So what this shows is actually a career technology map showing that we do have some CTE programs like biomedical, health science. We have some allied health programs. We are incorporating those programs into the school from a CTE standpoint. And we're also incorporating some technology programs like cybersecurity, gaming and simulation. All these are things that we are now incorporating as we move forward in the interior fit-out package.
Yeah, I think the biggest change from when we were here last time presenting to you is that at that time, all of these programs hadn't quite been defined 100%. They've now been defined, and these are the programs that the staff has directed us to incorporate into the campus.
So Michael and Deborah, Michael, with the visits that we did at some other campuses and looking at some of the programs and what we're working with within our budget constraints, these spaces will accommodate what we're looking to do from a programming standpoint and what we've observed as best practices?
We have cut where we've cut the budget in areas that we didn't give up anything in these programs. And the mindset that we stayed with was in the CTE or engineering labs, we made them double size to where that bigger spaces where teachers could have more collaborative, but the programs are exactly what we tried to put in there. That was the one thing that Dr. Pace said, stay with the programs, figure out how to make the budget work on other areas. So I'm very excited about the core of this building here. It's really, we worked hard to get it laid out the way we will be functional. So it's going to be really nice on there.
And
You're
Michael
gonna
and
see
Tim,
it's going to be sweet.
Yeah.
Michael and Tim are continuing to work with our folks from ICOMAR and engaging with some other partners and learning exactly what we want those engineering classrooms, for example, to be and to look like to meet the needs of the high-tech projects that are going in along the way.
And,
And I guess the point simply would be, as you probably have already gleaned, is I don't, and I think all of us, I don't want to move forward and then 8 months in, 2 years in, we go, oh man, had we only, this program could have done this. So I'd rather have the conversation now and know whether or not our expectations, not only for the immediate, but for the perceived opportunities going forward are there, and we really think we're building it the way we're going to need it.
And
So it sounds like everyone's.
This building's good for 20, 30 years. The way we built it and designed it was taking those trips in mind, and it can easily be changed into a new program. But all the things we've learned from those other high schools and all those other visits, any of the downstairs can be changed into a CTE program of any type. It's got a roll-up door. It's got a great culinary. It was downsized a little bit, but again, where we are with budget, the VPK is purposely placed. I'm telling you, functional, the principal who gets a hold of this place, we will rock and roll with it.
We got to have the right principal.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Deb.
And to your point, Tim, also, I mean, I've got a meeting scheduled next month with Dr. Pace with Jeff Pridmore, who's the head of the STEM Alliance for Central Florida, who's formerly of Lockheed, now he's at UCF doing research development. So it's very timely relative to all this. Good.
So if we go, I mean, the next couple of slides of just, the layout showing that where all of the various CTE spaces are located. You see these on the second floor, and then there's the Java programming program that's on the third floor of the campus.
Go back to the second floor, guys. I don't know if y'all would appreciate that terrace, that outdoor terrace on there, and where we put some of these science and labs. This is, I'm telling you, you're going to knock it completely out of the park with this one. It's going to be really nice. It's going to look good up there. And on the bottom floor, you got glass where you got your most the programs that you'll see the most, that'll be most attractive. We purposely placed them in the right spot, so it sells itself when a parent or a student walks into it. It's really well laid out and well designed by the group. So
I've got a question for Mr. Clinch. I'm looking at on the second floor classroom, alternative energy. Have we talked with either one of our ESCO partners about that? Because they've got some real expertise with wind and solar and some water reusable stuff. And now's the time to talk to them.
Absolutely. In fact, we are trying to tee up a meeting with KUA, who's the service provider, working with board member Weishire on that front.
Cover those parking lots with some solar panels.
Yeah, no, KUA's not exactly.
High school with covered parking.
Alternative energy.
High school with covered parking?
Yeah.
Siemens.
Bait.
That's alternative energy.
Might be able to sell those spaces.
Schenkel Schultz.
I didn't say sponsor.
Pretty sure they already do sell them to students.
So, we're talking about the interior fit-out package. We do want to touch on kind of reiterating academic programs from the classroom standpoint. And the whole concept and focus when we looked at how to lay out these classroom buildings and these flex spaces was all about flexibility. And essentially, we still create the same design intent. We really want to create the most 21st century educational classroom building that we can. So we're going to make sure we have the most flexible, adaptable, collaborative spaces that we possibly can incorporate. Go to the next slide. One of the things we wanted to make sure we did when talking about flexibility was, like I said before, use every inch of the site, every inch of the building that we can for 21st century learning in the most flexible way. So what you can see in this slide is actually just that corner or one wing of the classroom building. And this just shows you 6 different ways you could reconfigure those 4 spaces just by using operable doors, or operable walls, and potentially using that outdoor lab space that Dr. Yates was talking about. So the idea is you can have independent learning, you could have a science suite, you can make a maker space, lecture hall. We tried to make sure that was really the theme, was let's make it the most flexible space that we can, because technology and teaching is changing constantly.
Yeah, because, so if you do get down the road and say, oh, if only, right, you've got some ability to accommodate.
Okay, question, Dr. Pace. 80 student lecture halls, I've got no problem with, but how do we do that and still be in compliance with class size?
Say that again, Jay?
How do we do the 80 student lecture hall and still be in compliance with class size requirements that the state puts on us?
There are actually more classes now, for example, our advanced placement classes that don't fall under the strict room-by-room class size requirements. Those have really been more limited to your basic language arts, math, core courses.
Okay.
So it's possible. And he's not saying that we want to do that. It's
That
not
can change,
necessarily
too.
an instructional style that I embrace at this point in time, but we can
Okay.
do it if it serves a purpose.
No, and I'm not discouraging it, I just know that that's one of those persnickety issues that you can't get around.
You couldn't teach intensive reading like that, but you wouldn't want to. But you could perhaps put together an AP language class and an AP US history class and do some co-teaching in that kind of an environment and be very, have a meaningful opportunity.
Or you might have a speaker that comes in and you have 2 classes and you want to get these 2 classes to hear that speaker, you can use that space. That's kind of, it's just a flexible
just to give you an
space.
option.
It is so
more
flexible,
room.
you could do that for an afternoon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I
think that's great.
And you might do it once or twice a year, but the idea is you.
I didn't fully grasp.
Are the
it was-
walls thick enough?
Okay.
Yeah, they
Yes.
are acoustically rated, so that when they're shut, there's acoustical privacy on either side.
And they're wall panels, they're not.
You're a guest speaker in
Yeah.
another class.
Tell me what a wall
I'll have to
panel is as opposed to a sliding door?
It's the operable folding partitions, not accordion, not those. These are actual panels that.
But it is on a track.
I mean,
like
it's-
what you would
so
try-
those aren't
at a
panels, but if
convention
you
or
looked at
something.
that would be you could look at that and say that's
Yeah.
a panel wall.
Okay, I know what it
Take
is.
it apart.
I thought it was something different.
Yeah.
Isn't it like what you'd see at a convention center?
It's
Yes.
similar, very similar.
Very similar.
Yep. So now we're to the Gilbane part of the show.
Hopefully.
We'll take it over from here, right? So I just want to give you an update on the budget and where we currently are. We're still tracking, our budget's still tracking the estimate we presented in June, which was at $75.7 million. We've gone ahead and we've already bid out the first phase, and we've got our GMP for that early site work package. We're currently bidding out now the shell package. So while we're bidding that out, we're running an estimate concurrently with that, just to make sure that when the numbers do come back, there's nothing out of whack and we can identify if anything is. So we're tracking that closely, and we plan on bringing that to the second GMP to the board early October, which will be for that shell package, and then we'll have the final package. But currently, we're tracking on budget.
Okay.
So we'll know more after the shell package.
And I
I
guess
don't see anything out of the
the
ordinary.
only question I have for you, Eric, is because of the rapid pace of construction in Florida anyways right now, are there any commodities or trades that have gone up unexpectedly because just supply and demand? I mean,
I will tell you, I mean, everything seems to be going up. There's no doubt about it. Across the board, it's going up. But where I've seen the biggest increase on projects that we put out recently, for some reason, is plumbing. Plumbing numbers have just skyrocketed and gone through the
material or
roof.
labor?
It's mostly labor. Yeah, the material prices aren't they're about pretty steady, but it's the labor that we've seen skyrocket. And it's a shortage of labor is what it is.
I think to follow up on Mr. Willis' question, you've accounted for all of those anticipated increases throughout the construction timeline and what you're referencing for your budget currently.
Correct. When
So
we did the
know there's
original.
going to be some increases across the board in materials, labor, so on and so forth over the next 18 months. You've accounted for all that.
That's correct. We did in the original estimate that we did, Tim. So that was accounted for. You know, if it skyrockets, it goes past that, I don't know. But right now, it's, you know, it is increasing, but hopefully we're within that range.
Sure. And then Mark, you're completely dug in on this project.
Yes.
You understand all the moving parts and the aspects, and you're monitoring all aspects of what's taking place.
We do, yes.
And you're fully capable, or fully comfortable with where things are at right now.
I am. We continue to look ahead. And, you know, one of the concerns that we have with the upcoming bids is coverage. So Gilbane has exercised several strategies for outreach. Eric, could you summarize some of those?
We already did one outreach recently with the board. I'm sorry, with the foundation, and we held an event and had great participation with subcontractors. A lot of interest in the project, and so we're going to continue to do that. We've already identified and outreaching to a lot of the shell contractors, making sure that we get good participation. And what we found is, you know, it's constant communication with these guys. If they have any questions, you respond to their questions. If, you know, you've got to follow up with them all the time to the day of the bid, you know, to a couple of hours before the bid. And if you do that, you tend to get good participation without a whole lot of drop-off. But it's taken a lot.
So you know the normal comment from a board or a commission like ours when we're doing a project like this is you know, local vendors, and that balance between making sure that we're using as many local people as possible while also making sure that we're getting the best quality work and the greatest value for our investment. Maybe talk just to me at least a little bit about how you're doing with that, what you anticipate from a local participation standpoint, and so on and so forth.
And Tim, that was really the reason why we held the event here locally, was so that we could get as many local subs as possible to come to that event. We also have a pre-bid meeting that'll be coming up where, again, we'll invite everybody, especially the more local, and then advertise locally as well, trying to increase that participation.
And you feel like the participation numbers locally are going to end up proving to be satisfactory? I know we haven't set a benchmark. The board itself hasn't necessarily said we want this, but I mean, you know, again, I say we, I believe I speak for the board when I say this, you know, we trust you guys and we respect your work, and that's why you're at the table with us. But at the same time, we don't want to sit back, I imagine, 6-8 months from now and have 18 local people saying, if we only had this opportunity. So I think I'm just trying to be anticipatory of that and making sure that you or I, the board, or the superintendent or staff doesn't find ourselves in a situation downstream that we could have discussed today.
Sure, no, definitely understood, and I think, again, they'll have every opportunity to bid on the project. Obviously, you know, they really need to work to get the numbers to where they need to be. But there's also things that we can do, we can unbundle some of the packages and then look at, you know, taking maybe one of the larger subs and unbundling that, debundling it, and break it up into smaller packages.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. We've experienced this some in the past, and the success was taking some of the bid packages and breaking them down, because some of the local vendors that you have don't have the capacity to bid some of the huge.
Yep.
So, you know, and it's like, okay, well, you know, let's take masonry, for instance, and break it into two pieces. Yes, you'll be dealing with two subcontractors, but you give them a piece that they can actually bid and give a good number to.
And be successful, so
Right,
you're not setting them
correct.
up for failure.
Yeah.
Correct.
And this represents, as you know, our largest project in a number of years, and represents a significant project for the community as a whole.
Sure does.
And so I just know that there's trades sitting on the sidelines right now, hearing and excited about what this could mean, and thinking that maybe this is their opportunity to get a good job in their own backyard. So I've made my point. I know we're on the same page. I just want to make sure that we at least discuss it, and we understand what this could mean to, you know, local community members that are looking to provide work. And my message to them at the same time would be exactly what you said. Their work has to be on point, and their bids need to be on point. I mean, if they can't deliver the quality and the value that we need as a school district to maximize a tax dollar investment, then that just is what it is. It's got to be both sides of that equation. But the spirit and the willingness is there, and it sounds like we're all on the same page.
Absolutely, and if the board does hear of anybody that is interested in the project, please have them contact us. Have them contact me or Jason, and we'll make sure that we get them on the list as well, in case we may have missed
I
anybody.
got one question. It's for Dr. Pace. When are we going to consider names other than Boggy Creek High School?
Unless the board directs me otherwise, I would wait until we get a new principal on board typically, because the principal typically is involved in working with the community, getting input from stakeholder groups on what the name should be, what the school color should be, what the mascot could be.
Okay.
The Soto School for Academic Excellence.
Motion to approve.
It rolls off the tongue.
This is a
I'm in. I second.
This is a workshop, not a special meeting. You can't vote in a workshop.
I was waiting to hear that.
Don't make motions on my jokes anymore, please. Get really bad really fast.
And that was a really bad
Green
joke.
or
too.
the frogs. What do you call that frog?
Coquille.
Coquille.
Coquille High School. I think we're ready for that.
Yeah. All right, are
We
we?
have
Okay, well,
mascot, the
one more
frog.
slide. I just want to give you an update on where we currently are
We're getting
in
tight
the
on
process.
time, so let's keep it.
We'll make it quick. I know
Got
you're.
gold medal.
But for the next month, this month, and for September, we are looking to get our site clearing permit by the end of August, which will enable us to mobilize at the beginning of September. Time that we'll mobilize, we'll start off with the field offices, our temporary fencing, starting to mobilize heavy equipment, and then once we get mobilized, we'll start our mass grading and the excavation of the ponds, and then start bringing up the building pads. So that's where we're kind of heading in August and September. Again, I mentioned we're already bidding out the shell package. That's ongoing right now. De-scoping in September, bring it to the board in October, and then the one thing we do want to talk about quickly, if we could, is a groundbreaking ceremony. I know that we mentioned that we would want to do that. Anybody have an idea of what time that might
After
be?
November 8th.
That late?
They'll be marching right along by November 8th.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever you set up.
Yeah.
I mean, just
After
whatever our
the rainy
schedules
season.
permit.
After the rainy season.
Okay, we'll work together to sort it.
Okay, sounds good.
I have one quick question, Mr. Allen. We kind of skipped over this because I know it's not real right now. We talked about this future elementary school and what middle school. Thank you. Middle school and what's proposed. Any thoughts or comments from where you sit and the spacing? Have you guys looked at that? Does it fit for what prototype we have? We're going to be using. I mean, does this fit what you think we might need in 5 years or?
I do. Right. Yeah. Thank you for remembering the middle school, by the way.
Yeah. I noticed you answered yes once Aches put his hand on your shoulder. I'm concerned about the intimidation factor.
No, we have worked on this together. We've considered other sites that hold both high school and middle school. I've visited those sites in the past. I'm very comfortable with the way it's laid out, Mr. President.
Okay. And again, not to belabor the point, but I don't want to be 3 years from now having a conversation with middle school and going, oh my goodness, we didn't think about what's, middle schools are going to look like in 2020 or whatever year that is, 2019. So if you're good, you're looking at it.
It's 2026.
Whatever. Yeah, I hear you there. 10 years out. But it's got to go on a 5-year capital plan.
Yeah. Board, any other questions?
Not a question, just a comment. Great job and thank you.
Yeah,
for this
thank you.
update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Michelle. Thank you.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have time
Do
to
we have
go over
anything
a
else?
little bit of
John, thank you.
Quintiana, or do you want to, we can do it another time?
We hold off on that?
Absolutely.
Do you guys?
We do have an open board discussion.
Can, I don't know.
On there?
We do. Do you have something?
No, I can meet with you.
I just didn't know if,
That we don't want to do it?
well, I didn't know if it was, can we do it in 15 minutes or so?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
We can.
If Mark says we can, we
Oh,
can.
okay, yeah, I didn't know.
Update.
I kind of thought once you asked the question, we might not have had it.
Poinciana.
Thank you. Thanks, yes.
Okay, yes, we're doing Quintiana?
Yes.
Okay. John's.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great job. Eric, thank you.
What does MRP stand for?
Military Relocation Professional.
Hey, that's not a country. You're not in the military. You are? You're the admiral of real estate?
All right, Mr. Clinch, it's all yours.
Okay, so this is the update for the Point Siena High School Classroom Wing Edition.
This is the,
There
Life
are
Center
two
Wing of Advanced
planned.
Learning.
So this is for the first one. So, John, would you like to take this? We have already met with the architect, and we've completed several exercises so far.
Who is the architect?
The architect, if we use the prototype that was built at Harmony and prior to that at Gateway, is Song and Associates.
Okay.
And I've worked with Song,
Awesome.
as Mr. Davis has.
Is John still there?
John Cotrone, yes.
Okay, he's still there,
So
okay.
they're a very good firm. They're very practical,
I know
practical
Young.
design.
I know Young also.
So we have first completed the site adaptation to ensure, to confirm that this prototype would work on that site. And our architect has confirmed that. And we've also worked through the exercise to tie this in architecturally. Point Siena has a Spanish theme architecture, so we wanted to make sure that we would provide something that would tie in well and would be aesthetically pleasing, a good fit for that high school community. So we are now working through the program verification. We met out on site a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Akes and the CTE team, and we are working through the program verification now for what programs would go into the new two-story, 10-classroom wing additions. There'd be 10 on each floor,
Say 5
a
per
total
floor
of
doesn't sound
20,
like very big.
a total of 20 classrooms.
20 classrooms.
At first glance, it would appear that we're going to put science classrooms on the second floor. So that would have plumbing, sanitary, vent lines, that type of infrastructure to support science classrooms, and the gas as well. And the first floor would be general purpose classrooms with flexibility built in. On a couple of those classrooms, we intend to provide overhead roll-up doors so that in the future, we could use that for some other CTE type purpose.
So that's an additional 400 student stations we're talking about.
500.
500.
Well,
500, okay.
potentially 500. The principal has put in his request for what should go in there. If we put 5 science rooms in, they'll be larger than the average classroom would be, so we cut down the number of student stations. Right now, his count is about 325 and what he'd like to have. That was just his original request. We're still working through that with curriculum to find out exactly what's going to go
I
in
got the
there.
superintendent nodding her head no. So let's say 500. Let's go with 500. Let's go with 500. So the question: how many student stations is Point Siena built for? Have right now? 1,600.
Around 1,600.
So we're gonna be here about 2,000, 2,100 when this is done.
Permanent student stations.
Right. Is that correct?
I thought it was a little bit more than 1,600, but I don't know.
I think they have more than 1,600 students because of all the portables.
If it's science.
Okay.
Buildings, classes.
So 2,000, 2,100, 2,200 right in there. Okay.
Yeah, I thought there was more
18,
capacity.
So we're going to be
at that
22,
campus.
2,300.
Plus 500 now?
Yeah.
Correct.
Let's talk about 500 real quick, because 325 to 500 is a pretty big swing. If we're indeed going to have science labs which take up more space, is it going to be 500 or is it going to be somewhere between 325 and
The building can be 500 if you put 10 classrooms on each floor.
traditional
which is a
size classrooms? But
traditional
we're
size
saying
class.
that's not what we need to do.
The
or
prototype
I'm
that we built
confused.
at both Gateway and Harmony has one science classroom in it. All the rest are traditional classrooms and holds 500 student stations.
I think it'll be a matter of some compromising. We certainly want to meet their needs from a programmatic standpoint,
Mhm.
but we also have to make sure that it's being efficient and effective with the dollars that we have.
Well, that's my concern
And
is
to
when we
build
divide this out.
a wing for 325 students, I'm not sure is what I
We
would
can't
recommend
get
to
it
this
under the
board. So we
25,000
may not get to
station.
500, but let's talk about what's reasonable. So I will work with
Okay,
Dr.
I'm
Reese
fine
and
with
Mark
y'all,
and the
whatever.
principal to make sure we get back a good recommendation.
But we can't have $35,000 student stations.
Exactly.
Well, actually, worst case scenario, even at 325 is $20,000 student stations.
Thank you. I have a quick question and a comment. How are we, what is our primary objective in what we're trying to do with this wing? Because I think there's two different ways that we could approach this, and maybe you guys are. Is the primary objective to gain as many student stations as possible, or is the primary objective what we just spent the last hour discussing, which is creating quality student stations that can deliver the programming that we think is most appropriate for our students? I want to make sure that we're not sacrificing too much on one side to gain on the other, and we're balancing this out.
And that's where I think we have to get is to the balance piece. Is we want to certainly provide flexible spaces to meet the academic programming that we want to be able to provide to students in that school, but we also have to understand we have capacity issues and have to maximize the number of student stations that we can get to. But there's no point in putting a standard classroom and 25 desks in rows when we know that we want teaching to be different than that.
Right.
We're just going to have to look at where that compromise balance piece is, and I haven't had an opportunity yet to talk in depth with Dr. Akes about what they're thinking and kind of balance that piece of it. We'll do
Okay,
that.
so let me revisit with this follow-up then. Everything, the way that we're going about, and I don't care where the school is in the county, any high school, Osceola, my opinion would be that we need to design whatever new spaces we're constructing and building to accommodate what the academic programming that we're looking to accomplish district-wide is. So what I wouldn't want to do is build a state-of-the-art high school in Boggy Creek Road and then just build 4 walls and a roof at Poinciana High School and then say, well, we just kind of went with what the vernacular was at that campus to make things fit. We had a budget constraint. I want to make sure that we're starting with the end goal of exactly what we've talked about for a year and a half now up at Boggy Creek, and we're looking at everything we do across the district that matches that objective. And if it means that the board has to have honest conversations about what the costs are, we need to have them, but I don't want to be on the other side and say we built a really efficient shell, but now we can't do the programming that's really important to us going forward.
We've looked at it real close. By Friday, I'll get Dr. Pace and Mr. Clinch program. So we're going to get 500 student stations, and we're going to get the programs that we need. When we did the walkthrough, Mr. Clinch and Mr. Davis had a wonderful idea on how to reconfigure some space. We're going to get you 500 and we'll get the programs that we need to. So we're very cognizant of that, and we're going to keep it at the budget that we need. So we will be able to do it both.
And you track
One
with
of the
me,
things, yes. One of the things I think that's very important to point out is that we have certainly shifted over the last couple of years and with the direction of this board and the cooperation of our facilities department in terms of working hand in hand with programming throughout the design construction process, so that we're not just building a building, which we could do very efficiently, but we're building a building that meets the district mission and vision and programming needs. At the same time, we have to have, as you said, equity and that district vision of how that all comes together. And principals absolutely have input and need to be involved at the table, but we don't build a building for a principal. We build a building to meet the needs of the students in that community. And I think that's where we have to sometimes maybe find some balance.
So let me ask this board, do you guys agree with my comments?
Yes.
Are we on the same page?
I think that
Yeah, absolutely.
you explained perfectly what the vision, you just repeated what the vision of this board was 2 years ago when we first started discussing our plans for this high school and how the district wants to move forward with new construction and I thought we included in that also additions. So.
And what I was trying to point out.
And that's not to say you guys haven't captured that. I'm just making
with you
sure
100%.
that.
We appreciate the
Okay.
point well made and absolutely understood and well taken. You just have to remember, as a principal, if they aren't advocating for every single big idea, dream that they can possibly think of for their school, I'm gonna have a problem
No,
with that.
that's what they do.
But it's also my job every once in a while to say, okay, let's look at what the district needs.
Yeah, and we want and need you to do that. I just want to
Well,
make sure
both
that.
of you do.
Yeah, just what I would say is don't say no to yourselves. Okay, especially with Dr. Akes with curriculum. Don't say no to yourself ever.
They're
Okay.
meeting the needs, so I
That-
promise you
that-
that we went out there
that's-
and we'll be able to
I
get
think that this board is going to be is already stated many times how we want this to be a future for Osceola County, and we want to lead the way with that in the school district.
And what I was trying to point out, is we've just started the process for facilities list for we had our first meeting last week with the principal and Dr. Akes. and to set up, to get a rough idea of what we want. The principal has just sent in his first request. We haven't had a chance to evaluate yet. Dr. Eggs hasn't had a chance to evaluate it yet. We've started the process, and by the time we get done, we should achieve everything you're looking for in that process.
Okay. And when Mr. Will's done, I just want one more statement.
I just want to know, can right now, if we build these additional student stations for whatever programs we have, can the cafeteria accommodate the increased student population?
That cafeteria was designed fairly large. Remember when we did the renovation after the hurricanes?
Yes,
And it has some flexible spaces there with exterior dining, flexible serving outside. There's lots of flexibility.
I thought that was the answer, but I wanted to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, so my final, I believe, is when I think about we're building a wing, take any one, I know this is the behemoth in here, this is our Boggy Creek campus. Any one of these, we're talking about building an engineering wing, a health science wing, those type of approaches. I'm just assuming that we're going to take that same type of approach with what we're doing here, that we're not just saying gen ed, but we're looking to say what is the program identifier that we want to make sure is in existence or expanded at PHS, and we're going to work to build that opportunity at that area of the county for those students, the same as we're talking about for these. And I think my point really is, if it's a wing and this is a wing, and this wing works well for what we're planning to do curriculum-wise up in Boggy Creek, then is there a program, a CTE component, an academic alignment that we should be looking at PHS for this new wing as well?
Yes, sir, and we've taken that into account.
Okay. I'm good. I don't want to belabor it because of time, but I just want to make sure that I know we're short, so I don't want to drag it out any longer than I have. But
we also took the design of the Boggy Creek CTE classrooms, and they're trying to incorporate it into this wing and the science lab, so it's all just the same.
We transferred that understanding into this new wing, working with Mr. Blanchard.
Okay.
Our goal at this point was to start a facilities list with curriculum directing that, and when we get the architect on board, which will be very shortly, then we'll bring the architect in to start developing the study that we've been working on at the high school, the same type of concept.
Okay, and so, thank you. So what I'm hearing then is everything that we're saying today is really no different than what you guys have already been envisioning and the direction you're on, so we haven't, or I haven't said something that derails what you were about to share with us. We're all working in the same direction anyway. You guys have already anticipated any crazy comment I would have come up with tonight, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are working very much in sync with CTE.
A lot of, all your crazy comments.
And your comments are noted and appreciated, and we will ensure that the programmatic requirements are built into this wing. Absolutely. So, provided that we stay on track with the Song and Associates prototype, we'd be bringing this to the September 6th board meeting, and we're talked with purchasing today. They're already writing the advertisement for the CM at risk, and we would anticipate going to construction in January or sooner to land this in the early summer.
Geo, go, yeah.
Sir.
Well done.
John, facilities list development?
We did, as I stated earlier, we already had the meeting with curriculum and the principal at the school to start the process for what goes in the building. We're nowhere near finished, it's just the start. This is the existing facilities, and these are some of the elements we were hoping to pick up on the new wing, so we just didn't build a box out back that didn't blend in with the school. I did ask the architect to look at developing 2 or 3 elevation studies that would show how the possibility of blending these elements into the school could look like. And none of these elevations are intended to be the elevation. In fact, I can almost guarantee you none of them are the elevation. We'll be working at the right one. But, excuse me, the site plan is next. This is where we'd like to put the building. We're showing 2 for a master planning for a second edition if needed. The one on the south end, or closest to the building on the bottom of the screen, would be the first building that we would build. And this is the first elevation study. He's picked up the elements from the main building, including the metal roof. This one's looking at a flat roof, but still trying to pick up the elevation pickups.
And the flat roof, elevation 2, if you can go back, John. That's what we have at Harmony. That's a single ply membrane roof.
It's working out well.
Yes.
And like I said, these were just 3 studies I asked him to look at so we could say, yes, this building can go in the back of the building. I don't want to build a building out back that doesn't look good with the school. We're in the business of school now. We need the schools to be attractive and the students want to go there. And so the intent is I think we can get an attractive addition that blends into the existing school. And we will be developing all of these further into one elevation study that we'll bring back to the board. That's really all I had.
Why was Point Siena built for 1870 some odd students? Is that just what the board was building back then?
Yeah, back in 96, 94.
I was
whatever.
a teacher the first year we moved into that building, and that was when we still had 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. And it's a unique design. I don't even know who did it. Was it Shingle Schultz?
No.
I didn't think so because yeah, it
Phyllis
wasn't
Kendall out
a
of Miami
prototype.
with Parsons, local architect.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
It goes back to some of the discussion we were having a while back about our new numbers. I mean, it hasn't been that long ago we were building high schools for under 2,000 students.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, at one point in time at Point Siena, we had like 50 portables that were in full use, along with the rest of that campus.
Yeah. And I guess that's part of why I was asking is, I mean, that school exploded. Mm-hmm. You lived a lot of it, but exploded for years. Now we're in a different position, but the growth is coming back to that area again. Mm-hmm. So I'm surprised when I hear 1870 or whatever it was.
It was a real struggle, though, in the beginning to build enrollment at that school, if you remember. We started out at like 1,600 and really worked to kind of build that.
Yeah, everyone wanted to stay at OHS.
Everybody wanted to stay at OHS, exactly. But then when Celebration opened, we were supposed to go back to like 2,000 students, and we never did. Right. It just boomed.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Anything else, Board?
Thank you.
Board, do you have any other
I do.
points for discussion?
I do.
Adjourn this?
And I think that now's a good time. I've got it on the agenda, but I can talk about it here real briefly, seeing as we got our building professionals here, and I talked to Mark about it also. I got SREF on the agenda only because we have discussed ad nauseum about the prospect of getting relief from SREF, and there is statutory language that allows us to do it, and not tonight, but in the future. Mark and I had this conversation, is I think that we need a presentation either at a workshop or a board meeting, just going over some of the elements that really are part of SREF that maybe we want to look at, maybe we do want relief from, maybe we don't, maybe we develop our own ed spec, and in that do some kind of a comparison. This is what we are building a school for X number of student stations for. Here's what it would be without SREF, and here's what charters in Osceola have built for. And these are the elements they don't have in their schools that we do have in our schools, etc. So I just think that as we've talked about it in the past, it'd be good to have some real data to review, so that way we know where, what, and why, and maybe there are things we want to keep, maybe there's things that we don't need to keep. And we're not there now, but I don't know. I'll let you all decide if it's in a workshop, if it's a presentation, how you want to.
Yeah, in fact, we just responded to the OPAGA survey, which is the Office of Program Policy and Government Accountability, and we commented on several things, several recommendations that we provided that could or should be changed within SREF that would make the process a little bit more fluid. Also, we've already talked with, and I've shared this discussion with Mr. Davis, we've talked with several design professionals, and we are working to provide a cost analysis, the SREF versus non-SREF. And it's more of a program issue, what programs go in and the square footage that's dictated for those programs. But we'll include that in the future presentations as well.
I believe that the state is, as a part of that OPAGA piece, doing a comprehensive study, aren't they?
EDR is doing a study as well right now on the exact same thing.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple of those things going out there, and as you remember, the statutory language requires a district to provide, to have a supermajority, but also to provide some of that clear evidence and cost analysis and those types of things before you can seek relief.
Right. Here's the answer. I agree with almost everything you said.
Come on.
Yeah, almost. I need to catch myself. But I agree, and whatever we need to do, because the conversation about construction is not going to go away, and building new facilities, we've talked about SRF relief as a board for now a number of years, at least in this board. So whatever we need to do to understand all of those pieces and parts, if we need to talk about hiring a subject matter expert to drill down at greater detail than our staff is either capable of doing or has the time to do, now's the time to do it, because it's costing us a lot of money, and we don't want to be, penny wise, pound foolish, if you will, in how we go about that. So I'm all in.
Closely.
Yeah, I'm all in for figuring out where we can find these cost savings as we're constructing.
But
It might just take us a little bit of
No,
time.
sure,
but-
take your time, but also, let's get, first off, I don't necessarily trust something comes out of Tallahassee, I don't care what agency it's coming from.
But I think there are going to be several different pieces that come together at the same time that we would have as a reference.
But-
EDR, OPAGA, our own.
But again, also, I mean, call Academica, call Charter Schools USA, and let's get some of their costs and they may or may not share it, but we can ask the question. And granted, we don't want to necessarily build their schools, but it'd be another point of reference, though, to consider with this conversation. And one last thing, Clarence, again, this is on the agenda also, I put it on, is dual enrollment. Dr. Fritz, who
Had
stepped
to
in.
leave, he had a family emergency.
Oh, okay. Well, Dr. Fritz sent me an email that he doesn't have all the data in yet on dual enrollment. When he has it, he plans to present it to the board. So those are the two issues I've got, which I just covered. So.
Stand adjourned.
Thank you, we're adjourned then.